Willow Davies was scrolling through her phone at 2 in the morning when the message popped up from someone she had never expected to hear from again. And in that moment, she had no idea that the stranger on the other end of that screen would soon become the most important person in her life. She sat cross-legged on her worn couch in her small apartment above the bakery where she worked, the blue light from her phone illuminating her tired face. The message was simple, almost mundane, but something about it made her pause. It was from Venture Friends, an online community she had joined months ago for people interested in entrepreneurship and business. She had mostly lurked there, reading success stories and occasionally commenting on posts about small business struggles. The username was VG Investor, and his message read, "I saw your comment about sourdough starters being like patience investments. Made me laugh. You work in a bakery." Willow smiled despite her exhaustion. She had made that comment 3 days ago on a thread about long-term business strategies, comparing the slow fermentation process to building a sustainable company. She typed back quickly, "Yeah, I do. Been there for 5 years. Sometimes I think bread teaches you more about patience than any business book could." The response came faster than she expected. 5 years is impressive. Most people give up on things much sooner. What keeps you there? She found herself settling deeper into the couch cushions, her tea growing cold on the side table. There was something refreshing about talking to someone who did not know her, who did not have preconceived notions about the baker girl who had never left her hometown. "Honestly, I love it. The smell, the routine, seeing people happy when they bite into something I made. But I have bigger dreams too. Want to open my own place someday." "What's stopping you?" Willow stared at those 3 words for a long moment. What was stopping her? Money, mostly. Fear, definitely. The comfort of the known versus the terror of the unknown. She decided to be honest. Capital, courage, the usual suspects. Fair answer. Most people would not admit the courage part. They talked for 2 more hours that night about dreams and bread and the strange vulnerability of the internet. Vincent Grayson, as she would not know his real name for weeks yet, sat in his penthouse office overlooking the city, his laptop open to financial reports he was supposed to be reviewing. He had built his empire from nothing, turning a small investment firm into a billion-dollar enterprise before he turned 35. Now at 37, he found himself inexplicably drawn to conversations with a baker who wrote about sourdough with the same passion he once had for his first startup. He had joined Venture Friends on a whim 6 months ago, using an anonymous account because he was tired of people treating him differently once they knew his net worth. He wanted genuine conversations, real connections, not networking opportunities or people angling for investments. And here was Willow, talking about flour hydration ratios with the kind of enthusiasm that reminded him why he had loved business in the first place. Their messages became a daily occurrence. Willow would text him during her break at the bakery, flour still dusting her forearms, and tell him about the cranky regular who always complained about the croissants, but bought 6 every week anyway. Vincent would message her late at night from whatever city he was in for business, asking her opinion on everything from company culture to what made a good apple pie. "You still have not told me what you do," Willow typed one evening, 3 weeks into their friendship. She was curious but hesitant to push. The anonymity felt safe, like they could be whoever they wanted to be. "I work in investments," Vincent replied, which was not technically a lie. "Lots of meetings, lots of travel. Sometimes I forget why I started doing this. Do you like it?" He paused before answering, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. Did he like it? He was good at it. He was successful, but did he like it? "I like solving problems. I like building things. The rest of it, the politics and the ego, not so much. What about you? Tell me more about this dream bakery of yours." Willow's eyes lit up even though he could not see it. She launched into a detailed description of what she envisioned. A small storefront with big windows, wooden tables where people could linger over coffee, a menu that changed with the seasons. She wanted to use local ingredients, create a space that felt like home, maybe even offer baking classes on weekends. She had notebooks full of recipes, business plans she had written and rewritten, sketches of what the interior could look like. "You have really thought this through," Vincent wrote, genuinely impressed. "Too much, probably. My mom thinks I should just be grateful for the job I have. Stability, you know, but I cannot shake the feeling that I am supposed to do more." "Your mom sounds practical. She is. She has had to be. My dad left when I was 8 and she raised me on a waitress salary. I get why she worries, but sometimes I think playing it safe is its own kind of risk." Vincent leaned back in his chair, a smile playing at his lips. He had said something similar in an interview once, years ago, when he was still scrappy and hungry. "I think you might be right about that." As autumn turned to winter, their conversations deepened. They talked about everything: childhood memories, favorite books, embarrassing moments, fears they had never voiced aloud. Willow told him about the time she had accidentally used salt instead of sugar in a wedding cake and had to remake the entire thing in 4 hours. Vincent told her about his first failed business, a tech startup that had crashed spectacularly and left him broke at 23. "How did you come back from that?" Willow asked. "Stubbornness, mostly, and the realization that failure is just expensive education. I learned more from that disaster than I did from 4 years of college." "Do you think everyone has that kind of comeback in them?" "No," he answered honestly, "but I think you do." Willow felt something flutter in her chest when she read those words. It was more than just encouragement. It felt like being seen. This stranger on the internet, whose face she had never viewed and whose real name she did not even know, seemed to understand her better than people she had known her whole life. Vincent was feeling something similar. He found himself looking forward to her messages more than any business deal. When he closed a major acquisition that would net him hundreds of millions, his first thought was to tell Willow about it, not because he wanted to impress her, but because she would understand the satisfaction of building something. He caught himself, though. She still did not know who he was, and he was not ready to risk losing this connection. "Can I ask you something personal?" Willow typed one December evening. Snow was falling outside her window, and the bakery had been crazy all day with holiday orders. Always. "Do you ever feel lonely? Like you could be surrounded by people but still feel completely alone?" Vincent looked around his empty penthouse at the expensive furniture and the city lights twinkling below. "Yeah," he typed. "I know exactly what you mean. I went on a date last week," Willow continued. "First one in almost a year. He was nice enough, but all I could think about was how I would rather be home talking to you." "Is that weird?" Vincent's heart rate picked up. He stared at the message for a long moment before responding. "Not weird. I turned down dinner with friends tonight because I wanted to see if you would be online." There was a pause on both ends, both of them recognizing that something had shifted between them. What had started as a casual online friendship was becoming something else, something neither of them had anticipated. "We do not even know what each other looks like," Willow pointed out, but there was no skepticism in her words, just wonder. "Does that matter?" She thought about it. In the shallow world of dating apps and social media, it probably should matter. But when she talked to him, she forgot about appearances and superficial things. She felt comfortable, challenged, understood. "No," she finally typed. "I do not think it does." I have a crazy idea, Vincent wrote. I am listening. What if we met? In person, I mean. Willow's breath caught. The rational part of her brain screamed about internet safety and stranger danger. But this did not feel like talking to a stranger. This felt like talking to someone who might actually know her soul. Where are you located? I can come to you. Where are you? She told him, a small city in Oregon that most people had never heard of. It is not exactly a hub of excitement, she added. I do not need excitement. What's your favorite coffee shop? They made plans to meet the following Saturday at a cafe downtown called the Roasted Bean. Willow immediately panicked. She called her best friend, Sarah, who had been hearing about VG Investor for months now. You are actually meeting him, Sarah practically shrieked over the phone. Willow, this could be dangerous. He could be a serial killer or a catfish, or a serial-killing catfish. I will be in a public place, Willow reasoned, though her hands were shaking. And I will text you every 30 minutes. If I do not check in, you can call the police. I am coming with you. I will sit at another table and pretend to read, but I am coming. Willow did not argue. The truth was, she was terrified. Not just of the stranger danger aspect, but of the possibility that the connection they had online would not translate to real life. What if they had nothing to talk about face to face? What if he was disappointed when he saw her, average-looking with her messy brown hair and flour-stained jeans? What if she had built this up in her head and reality came crashing down? Vincent was having similar fears on his private jet as he flew to Oregon that Saturday morning. He had told his assistant he was taking a personal day, which had prompted raised eyebrows since he never took personal days. He had packed and repacked his bag 3 times, trying to decide what a normal person wore to a coffee date. Everything in his closet suddenly seemed too expensive, too obviously designer. He settled on jeans and a simple black sweater, leaving his watch at home. The bigger issue was when to tell her who he was. He could not exactly hide his identity forever, and he did not want to. But he was terrified that once she knew, he was Vincent Grayson, CEO of Grayson Investments, with a net worth that had been estimated at $3.7 billion by Forbes last year. Everything would change. People always changed when they found out. They got nervous or greedy or weirdly formal. He could not bear the thought of Willow looking at him differently. He decided he would tell her after coffee if things went well. Or maybe during coffee. Or maybe he should have told her before. He was a man who made million-dollar decisions daily without breaking a sweat, and he could not figure out how to handle a coffee date. Willow arrived at the Roasted Bean 15 minutes early, her heart hammering in her chest. She had changed outfits 4 times, finally settling on dark jeans and a soft blue sweater that Sarah said brought out her eyes. She had actually put on makeup, which she rarely did outside of special occasions. Her hair was down, falling in waves past her shoulders, and she was already second-guessing everything. Sarah was indeed at another table, partially hidden behind a book, but with a clear view of the door. She gave Willow an encouraging thumbs up. Vincent walked in at exactly 2 o'clock, and Willow knew it was him before he even looked around. There was something about the way he carried himself, confident but with a hint of nervousness that made him human. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that was slightly tousled like he had been running his hands through it. He wore jeans and a black sweater, and when his eyes scanned the room and landed on her, she felt her stomach flip. He was gorgeous. That was her first coherent thought, followed immediately by a wave of insecurity because surely someone who looked like that would be disappointed by her. But Vincent's face broke into a genuine smile when he saw her, and he walked over like he had been looking for her his whole life. "Willow, VG Investor," she said, standing up, and they both laughed nervously. Vincent, he said, extending his hand. Vincent Grayson, but everyone calls me Vince. She shook his hand, noting how warm it was, how the simple touch sent electricity up her arm. Nice to finally meet you, Vincent. They sat down, and for a moment there was awkward silence as they both tried to reconcile the person they had been talking to for months with the physical person in front of them. Then Willow said, "This is so weird, right? I feel like I know you, but I do not know you at all." "I was just thinking the same thing," Vincent admitted. "I have been nervous all morning. I never get nervous." "What do you have to be nervous about? I am the one who should be nervous. You are." She gestured vaguely at him and he raised an eyebrow. "I am what?" "You know what you are," she said, blushing. "Do not make me say it." He grinned, and she recognized that grin from his words somehow. "You are not exactly what I expected either," he said. Her face fell slightly. "Oh, no, no," he said quickly, reaching across the table to touch her hand. "I mean you are more. The pictures in my head did not do you justice. You are beautiful, Willow." She felt heat rush to her cheeks. "You do not have to say that. I do not say things I do not mean." They ordered coffee, and the conversation began to flow more naturally. They fell into the same easy rhythm they had online, but now with the added dimension of seeing each other's expressions, hearing the actual tone of each other's voices. Vincent liked the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed. Willow liked the way he leaned forward when he was interested in what she was saying, giving her his complete attention. An hour passed like minutes. Then 2 hours. The coffee shop started to empty out around them, and still they talked. Sarah had given up her surveillance and texted Willow that she was leaving but to stay safe, with about 15 heart emojis. "Can I be honest about something?" Vincent said, as the winter sun began to set outside. "Please. I did not tell you everything about what I do. The investments thing, that is true, but it is more than that. I own Grayson Investments. Have you heard of it?" Willow frowned slightly, trying to place the name. "Maybe. I do not really follow that stuff. Should I have heard of it?" Vincent let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "It is a pretty big firm, one of the largest in the country actually, and I am the CEO and founder." "Oh," Willow said, processing this. "So you are really successful then?" "By most measures, yeah. I am wealthy, Willow, very wealthy. And I did not tell you because I wanted you to know me first, not my bank account, but I do not want to lie to you either." She sat back in her chair, studying him. "How wealthy are we talking? Billion with a B?" "Jesus," she breathed. "You are a billionaire and you have been talking to me about bread for 4 months. Best conversations I have had in years," he said seriously. Willow laughed, a bit incredulous. "This is insane. You know that, right? This whole situation is completely insane." "I know. Does it change things?" She thought about it, really thought about it. Did it change things? He was still the person who had encouraged her dreams, who had made her laugh at 2 in the morning, who had shared his fears and failures. The money was abstract, hard to even comprehend. But the man sitting across from her, the one who looked nervous waiting for her answer, he was real. "I do not know yet," she said honestly. "It is a lot to process, but I do not think it changes how I feel about talking to you. You are still the same person who compared quarterly reports to proofing dough." Vincent's shoulders relaxed. "I can work with that. Can I ask why you were on Venture Friends to begin with? Do not billionaires have people who do that stuff for them? Probably. But I was lonely," he said simply. "I was tired of every conversation being a transaction, tired of wondering if people liked me or my money. I just wanted to talk to someone real about real things. And then you made that sourdough comment and I thought, here is someone who gets it. The patience, the craft, the satisfaction of building something. I had to know more. And here we are," Willow said softly. "Here we are." They left the coffee shop as it was closing and walked down the main street of downtown. Christmas lights were strung between the lampposts, and light snow was beginning to fall. Willow pulled her coat tighter around herself, and without thinking, Vincent put his arm around her shoulders. She stiffened for just a second before relaxing into him, and they walked in comfortable silence. "Are you hungry?" Vincent asked. "I have not eaten since breakfast. Starving, actually. There is a good Italian place a few blocks from here if you like pasta." Dinner stretched into another 3 hours. They shared a bottle of wine, split a tiramisu, and talked about everything and nothing. Vincent told her about growing up middle class in Seattle, how his dad had been a high school teacher and his mom a nurse, how he had been obsessed with the stock market as a teenager, reading everything he could get his hands on, how his first investment had been $200 he had saved from mowing lawns, and he had lost it all but learned valuable lessons. Willow told him about her childhood, about how her dad leaving had devastated her mom, but also made them closer. How she had started baking with her grandmother, who had taught her that food was love in its most basic form. How she had gone to community college for business, but had dropped out when the bakery offered her full-time work. It had seemed practical at the time, but now she wondered if she had taken the easy route. "It is not too late," Vincent said. "You are what, 26? 27. You are 27. You have decades to build whatever you want. And for what it is worth, I think you would be an incredible business owner. You have the passion, the work ethic, the vision. The rest is just logistics." "Just logistics," she repeated with a smile. "Easy for you to say." "I could help you," he offered carefully. "Not with money," he added quickly when he saw her expression. "With the logistics, business plans, finding locations, negotiating leases. That is what I do, just on a much larger scale, but the principles are the same." "Why would you do that?" "Because I like you," he said simply. "Because talking to you reminds me why I loved building businesses in the first place. Because I think you are going to do this with or without my help, but maybe with it, you will do it sooner." Willow felt tears prick her eyes unexpectedly. "I just met you in person today." "I know. But I feel like I have known you much longer than that." "Do not you?" She nodded because she did. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely unexpected, but she felt more connected to this man she had just met than she had felt to anyone in years. When Vincent walked her back to her apartment above the bakery, they stood outside in the falling snow, neither wanting the day to end. "When do you have to leave?" Willow asked. "Tomorrow afternoon. I have meetings in New York on Monday." "Oh," she could not hide her disappointment. "But I could come back next weekend, if you wanted me to." "I work Saturday mornings. I am at the bakery by 4. I am usually up by 5 anyway. Maybe I could come by, see you in your element," Willow smiled. "You want to watch me knead dough at 4 in the morning, honestly." "Yeah, I really do." She surprised herself by standing on her tiptoes and kissing his cheek. "Then I will see you Saturday." Vincent touched his cheek where her lips had been, grinning like a teenager. Saturday. It is a date. The week that followed was torture for both of them. They texted constantly, but now their messages had a different quality. There was an awareness, a tension that had not been there before. Willow found herself staring at his contact photo, which was a picture he had sent of him in his office with a genuinely terrible cup of coffee he had gotten from a street vendor. Vincent found himself distracted in meetings, checking his phone like a lifeline. His assistant, Margaret, who had worked with him for 8 years, cornered him on Thursday. "Who is she?" "I do not know what you mean," Vincent said, not looking up from his phone. "You have smiled at your phone 17 times today. You have rescheduled 2 meetings. You are wearing a tie I have never seen before, which means you actually went shopping for yourself instead of having me do it. So I repeat, who is she?" Vincent looked up, caught. Her name is Willow. I met her online. Margaret's eyebrows shot up. Online? You? It is not like that. We were friends first, for months, and then we met last weekend and he trailed off. And you are completely gone for her, Margaret finished, smiling. Good, you need someone who is not impressed by all this. She gestured around his palatial office. When do I get to meet her? Slow down. We have had one date. Well, one in-person date. I am seeing her again this weekend. Where does she live? Oregon. And you are flying there on the private jet for what, a weekend visit? Yes, Margaret laughed. Vincent Grayson, you are in trouble, and I could not be happier about it. Saturday morning came, and Vincent landed at the small regional airport at 3:30 in the morning. He had rented a car, not wanting to draw attention with a driver, and drove through the quiet streets to the bakery. The lights were on inside, and through the large front windows he could see Willow moving around, her hair pulled back in a bandana, an apron tied around her waist. He knocked softly on the door, and her face lit up when she saw him. She unlocked it and pulled him inside, and suddenly they were kissing, really kissing, and it felt like coming home. Her hands were in his hair and his were on her waist, and neither of them wanted to stop. I missed you, she breathed when they finally broke apart. It was 6 days. I know. Still missed you. The bakery owner, Tom, came out from the back and stopped short when he saw Vincent. Willow. Oh, sorry, Tom. This is Vincent. He is a friend from online. Vincent, this is my boss, Tom. Tom shook Vincent's hand, looking confused. Nice to meet you. You are here at 4 in the morning because I wanted to see Willow, Vincent said simply. Tom looked between them and grinned. Ah, well, welcome. You ever baked before? Not successfully. Want to learn? That is how Vincent Grayson, Billionaire CEO, found himself up to his elbows in dough at 4:30 on a Saturday morning in a small bakery in Oregon. Willow stood next to him, guiding his hands, showing him how to knead properly, laughing when he used too much force and had to start over. Tom watched with amusement from his station where he was preparing croissants. This is harder than it looks, Vincent admitted, his arms already aching. That is what I have been trying to tell you. Respect the bread, Willow said, and he loved the way she lit up when she talked about her craft. They worked side by side for the next 4 hours as the bakery prepared for opening. Vincent asked questions about everything: temperature control, ingredient ratios, timing, costs. His business brain was engaged, but more than that, he was genuinely interested. He could see why Willow loved this, the tangible satisfaction of creating something with your hands. When the first customers started arriving at 8, Willow and Vincent snuck out the back door, both covered in flour and laughing. That was amazing, Vincent said. You are a terrible baker. The worst, but I had fun. They got breakfast at a diner down the street, sitting in a cracked vinyl booth and eating pancakes. Can I show you something? Willow asked, pulling out her phone. She opened a folder and handed it to him. Vincent scrolled through dozens of photos, storefronts she had photographed, interior design ideas, menu drafts, business plans. Years of dreaming compiled in one place. Willow, this is incredible. Have you looked at locations? I cannot afford anything in a good area. And the buildings I can afford need so much work that I cannot afford the renovations. What if you had a partner, someone who could help with the initial investment? She took her phone back, shaking her head. I do not want that. I want to do this myself. Why? Because I need to know I can. Because if someone else puts in the money, then it is not really mine, is it? It is theirs. Vincent understood, but it frustrated him. He could solve this problem with a phone call, but she would hate him for it. What if it was a loan, with a real contract and interest and everything official? From you, from me. Vincent, I could never pay you back. Do you have any idea how long it takes a small business to become profitable? Actually, I do. And I am not worried about it. Think of it as an investment. I invest in companies I believe in, and I believe in you. Willow wanted to say yes so badly it hurt, but something held her back. Let me think about it, she said finally. They spent the rest of the weekend together. Vincent met Sarah, who pulled Willow aside and whispered, "You did not mention he looked like that, or that he is apparently loaded. Do you know who he is?" Apparently Sarah had Googled him after Willow mentioned his last name. "I know," Willow said. "It is weird, right? It is like a fairy tale. But Willow, be careful. Guys like that, they live in a different world. What happens when this weekend is over and he goes back to his billionaire life?" It was a question Willow had been trying not to think about. Vincent's world was private jets and board meetings and galas. Her world was 4 a.m. wake-up calls and flour under her fingernails and an apartment she could barely afford. How could those two worlds possibly merge? But when she was with him, those doubts faded. They walked through the snow-covered park on Saturday afternoon, holding hands like teenagers. They cooked dinner together in her tiny kitchen on Saturday night, bumping into each other and laughing at the cramped quarters. Vincent did not seem to care that her apartment was smaller than his closet. He sprawled on her second-hand couch like he belonged there, pulling her down next to him. "I do not want to leave tomorrow," he admitted, playing with her hair. "Then do not." "I have a board meeting Monday, a acquisition closing on Tuesday, investor calls Wednesday. Sounds important. It is, but so is this. You are." Willow turned to look at him. "What are we doing, Vincent?" "Really? I am falling for you," he said honestly. "I have been falling for you since that first message about sourdough, and now that I have met you, been with you, I am gone. Completely gone. You live in New York, I live here. You run a billion-dollar company, I make bread. How does this work?" "We figure it out. People do long distance all the time. Not people like us. You are going to get bored of flying across the country to visit a baker. You are going to meet someone at one of your fancy events who fits into your world better. Someone who knows about wine and art and whatever else rich people know about." Vincent sat up, turning her to face him. "Listen to me. I have met 1,000 people who fit into my world. They bore me to tears. You make me remember what it is like to be excited about something. To work with your hands and create something real. I do not want someone who fits into my world. I want someone who makes me want to be in a different world." She kissed him then, deep and long, trying to pour all her fear and hope and want into it. They made love that night for the first time, slow and tender in her small bed, and Willow thought that maybe fairy tales could exist outside of books. Vincent left Sunday afternoon, and the goodbye was harder than either of them expected. 2 weeks, he promised. "I will come back in 2 weeks." "Okay," Willow said, blinking back tears. 2 weeks. But 2 weeks turned into 3 because a deal went sideways and Vincent had to fly to London. Then 4 because Willow could not get time off from the bakery during their busiest season before Christmas. They talked every day, video chatted when they could, but the distance was beginning to wear on both of them. "I hate this," Willow said one night on the phone. It was late December, and they had not seen each other in person since that first weekend. "I hate missing you. I hate that I am falling in love with someone I barely see." "You are falling in love with me?" Vincent asked, his heart jumping. "Yeah," she admitted. "I am, and it terrifies me." "I am in love with you too," he said. "And I have an idea. Come to New York for New Year's Eve. Spend the week here. Let me show you my world, and then we can figure out how to blend it with yours." "Vincent, I cannot afford a trip to New York right now." "I will send you a ticket. Please do not argue with me on this. I miss you so much it physically hurts, and I need to see you. Please." Willow agreed, partly because she missed him just as desperately, partly because she was curious about his life in New York. She had Googled him after their second weekend together, and the results had been overwhelming. Photos of him at charity galas with beautiful women on his arm. Articles about his business acumen, his net worth, his influence. He was someone who mattered in a big, tangible way, and she was a baker from Oregon. The cognitive dissonance was hard to reconcile. She flew first class for the first time in her life, courtesy of Vincent, and spent the entire flight feeling out of place. When she landed at JFK, Vincent was waiting for her outside security, and the sight of him made everything else fade away. He kissed her right there in the middle of the airport, and she did not care who was watching. The car that picked them up was obscene, all leather and privacy glass. "This is how you normally travel?" Willow asked. "Usually. Is it too much?" "It is definitely too much. But I guess I am going to have to get used to too much if I am going to be around you." Vincent's penthouse was in a building in Manhattan that had a doorman and an elevator that required a special key. When they stepped inside his apartment, Willow actually gasped. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the skyline glittering with a million lights. The space was modern and sleek, all clean lines and expensive furniture. "This is where you live," she said, walking slowly through the space. "Yeah, I know it is a lot. I barely spend time here, to be honest. It is more like a place I sleep between trips. Vincent, this is bigger than the entire bakery where I work." He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Does it bother you? I do not know yet. It is just so different from anything I know." They spent the next few days finding their rhythm in his world. Vincent took her to his favorite hole-in-the-wall restaurants, the places he went when he did not want to be Vincent Grayson, Billionaire. They walked through Central Park bundled in coats and scarves. He took her to the Museum of Modern Art and loved watching her reaction to the paintings. But there were also the parts of his life that could not be avoided. A charity gala on December 30th that he had committed to months ago. "You do not have to come," Vincent said as they were getting ready. "I know it is not your thing." "I want to support you," Willow said, though her stomach was in knots. She had bought a dress for the occasion, spent more money than she should have, and she still felt like she was playing dress-up. When they arrived at the gala, Willow understood for the first time what Vincent's life really looked like. The room was full of the kind of people she had only seen in magazines. Diamonds that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Conversations about vacation homes and stock portfolios and political connections. Vincent kept his hand on the small of her back, grounding her, but she could see the way people looked at her. The curiosity, the assessment, the judgment. A woman in a gold dress approached them, stunning and polished in a way Willow knew she could never be. "Vincent, darling, it has been too long." She air-kissed his cheeks, then turned to Willow with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "And who is this?" "This is Willow Davies." "Willow, this is Celeste Hartley. She runs the Hartley Foundation." "Lovely to meet you," Willow said, shaking her hand. "And what do you do, Willow?" "I am a baker." Celeste's smile faltered just slightly. "Oh, how charming, like professionally." "Yes, professionally," Vincent said, his voice edging with irritation. "She is incredibly talented." "I am sure," Celeste said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Well, enjoy your evening." She glided away, and Willow felt about 2 inches tall. "I hate her," Vincent muttered. "She is beautiful. She is vapid. And mean. And I have never liked her, for the record." But the damage was done. Willow felt the gap between their worlds like a chasm for the rest of the evening. She smiled and made small talk and tried to be who she thought these people wanted her to be, but by the time they got back to Vincent's penthouse, she was exhausted. "That was terrible," she said, kicking off her heels. "I do not fit into that world, Vincent. Did you see how they looked at me? I did not care how they looked. I only cared about being there with you. But I cared. I cared that I did not know which fork to use or what to say when someone asked about my portfolio. I cared that I was the only person there who had flour under my fingernails yesterday. Vincent pulled her close. I fell in love with the woman who has flour under her fingernails, not some polished version of you that fits into that world. I do not want you to change. But how does this work? You cannot abandon your life and I cannot become part of it. We are stuck. Then we create something new, something that is ours. They spent New Year's Eve, just the two of them, watching the ball drop on TV and toasting with champagne at midnight. This year, Vincent said, I want you in my life properly, not just weekends and phone calls, really in my life. How? Move to New York. Open your bakery here. I will help you find a location, help you get started. You will have your dream and we will have each other. Willow pulled back to look at him. You are asking me to uproot my entire life. I know, and it is unfair. But I am also offering to help you build the life you actually want. You are not happy at Tom's Bakery. You have been working there for 5 years going nowhere. This is your chance. And what if we do not work out? Then I am alone in New York with a failing business and no support system. Vincent took her hands. I cannot promise we will work out, even though I believe we will. But I can promise that I will support your business regardless. We will put it in writing, a contract that protects you. If things go south between us, you still have your bakery. I will not take that away. She wanted to say yes. Every fiber of her being wanted to take the leap, but fear held her back. Can I think about it? Of course. Willow flew back to Oregon on January 2nd with more questions than answers. She threw herself into work at the bakery, trying to think clearly. Sarah was no help, alternating between this is romantic, go for it, and this is crazy, do not blow up your life for a man. Her mom was even less helpful. A billionaire. Willow, those people do not end up with girls like us. He's going to break your heart. You do not even know him, Willow protested. I know that men with that kind of money think they can buy anything, including people. Be careful, baby. But Willow knew Vincent was not trying to buy her. He was trying to build a life with her, and there was a difference. The question was whether she was brave enough to let him. She made lists of pros and cons. She lay awake at night imagining what her bakery could look like. She talked to Vincent every day, and he never pressured her, just listened and answered her questions. Finally, 3 weeks after New Year's, she called him at 2 in the morning her time. I will do it, she said when he answered. I will move to New York. I will open my bakery. I will take a chance on us. She could hear the smile in his voice. Yeah, but I need that contract. And I need to do this my way, on my timeline. I am not going to rush into something and do it badly. Whatever you need, I will have my lawyers draft something tomorrow. And Willow. Yeah, I love you. Thank you for trusting me. I love you too. Do not make me regret this. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Vincent's lawyers drew up a contract that was ridiculously favorable to Willow, essentially guaranteeing her financial security even if their relationship imploded. She gave her notice at the bakery, and Tom was supportive even though he was losing his best employee. Go chase your dreams, kid, he said. You have been baking other people's recipes long enough. She packed up her small apartment, said tearful goodbyes to Sarah and her mom, and moved across the country to a city that felt overwhelming and foreign. Vincent had found her a small apartment in Brooklyn, close to several neighborhoods he thought would be good for the bakery. It was not his penthouse, which Willow had been firm about. She needed her own space while she figured out this new life. The apartment was tiny but charming, with exposed brick and big windows. It is perfect, she told Vincent when he helped her move in. Thank you. You are not living with me, he said with mock hurt. Not yet. Let me find my footing first. Finding the right location for the bakery took another 2 months. Willow looked at dozens of spaces, each one wrong for different reasons. Too expensive, too small, wrong neighborhood, bad layout. Vincent went with her to every viewing, offering his opinion when asked, but letting her make the decisions. Finally, in late April, they found it. It was in Park Slope, a neighborhood in Brooklyn with tree-lined streets and young families and a community feel that reminded Willow of home. The space had been a cafe that had closed, so it already had some of the infrastructure she needed. Big windows facing the street, enough room for tables and a small kitchen in back. It needed work, but it had good bones. "This is it," Willow said, walking through the space for the third time. "This is where I open my bakery." Vincent put in an offer that day, structured so that Willow would own the space outright once the business loans were paid off. They spent the next month working with contractors, designing the layout, choosing equipment. Willow hired a lawyer of her own to look over everything, making sure she understood every contract and obligation. She was not going to be naive about this. She decided to call the bakery Flour and Fire, a name that felt both homey and ambitious. She designed a logo with a graphic designer friend from college, created a menu that showcased everything she loved to make. She hired 2 employees, both experienced bakers looking for a smaller, more personal work environment. Vincent watched her come alive in a way he had never seen. She was in her element, making 1,000 decisions a day, solving problems, creating something from nothing. He helped where he could, using his business expertise to streamline operations and his connections to get better deals with suppliers. But mostly he just watched her shine, falling more in love with her every day. They opened Flour and Fire in early July, on a hot summer morning with a line around the block. Word had spread through the neighborhood about the new bakery, and people were curious. Willow worked 16-hour days that first week, baking from 3 in the morning until late afternoon, then staying to close up and prep for the next day. Vincent showed up every morning at 7 with coffee, sitting at the corner table and working on his laptop while she worked. "You do not have to be here every day," she told him one morning, exhausted but happy. "I want to be here. This is better than my office." The bakery was a success from the start. Her sourdough became legendary in the neighborhood. Her croissants sold out by 9 every morning. Food bloggers started writing about her, and weekend lines got longer and longer. By September, Willow had hired 2 more employees and was considering expanding the menu. "I cannot believe this is my life," she told Vincent one evening as they walked home from the bakery. They had fallen into a routine where she would close up around 6, and they would walk the 15 minutes to his penthouse or her apartment, depending on where they were staying that night. "You built this. You should be proud." "I could not have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. It would have taken longer, but you would have gotten here. I just helped speed up the timeline." In October, Vincent had to fly to Tokyo for a week of meetings. "Come with me," he said as he packed. "You have employees now, take a break." "I cannot just leave the bakery." "Why not?" "Do you not trust your team?" She did trust them, but the idea of leaving made her anxious. Still, she had barely left the neighborhood since opening, and the thought of a week away with Vincent was tempting. "Okay," she said impulsively. "Let me make sure everything is covered and I will come." Tokyo was incredible. They ate at tiny ramen shops and explored ancient temples. Vincent had meetings during the day, but his evenings and mornings were free, and they spent them exploring the city. Willow found herself relaxed in a way she had not been in months. "I needed this," she admitted one night as they soaked in the hot spring at their traditional ryokan. "I have been so consumed with the bakery I forgot to breathe." It is easy to do when you are building something, but you have to take care of yourself too. The business will survive if you step away sometimes." When they got back to New York, Willow found the bakery had run smoothly in her absence. Her employees had handled everything, and rather than feeling relieved, she felt something else: pride. She had built something sustainable, something bigger than just herself. As fall turned into winter, Willow and Vincent settled into a life together. They spent most nights at his place now, Willow bringing pieces of herself into his sterile penthouse. Her books on his shelves, her ridiculous collection of coffee mugs in his kitchen, her warm presence making his house finally feel like a home. On Christmas Eve, Vincent took her to the bakery after it had closed. He had a key now, coming and going as he pleased since he spent so much time there anyway. The space was dark except for the string lights Willow had hung in the windows. "What are we doing here?" she asked, confused. "I have something for you." He led her to one of the tables where a wrapped box sat. "Open it." Inside was a framed document, the deed to the building with her name as the sole owner. The loans had been paid in full. "Vincent, what did you do?" "I paid off the business loans. The building is yours, free and clear." "Merry Christmas." "You cannot do that. That was not the deal. The deal was I would support you, and I am. This is me making sure that no matter what happens between us, you have security. You have your dream, and no one can take it away." Willow started crying, overwhelmed by the gesture and what it meant. "This is too much." "It is not enough," he said, pulling another small box from his pocket. He got down on one knee and Willow's breath caught. "I know we have only been together a year. I know it has been fast and crazy and unconventional. But I have never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you. I love your passion and your courage and the way you make me want to be better. I love that you still have flour on your jeans even after you close the bakery. I love that you sing off-key when you bake and that you cry at dog adoption commercials. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Willow Davies, will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, a simple diamond that caught the light from the string lights. But Willow was not looking at the ring. She was looking at the man, the one who had been a stranger on the internet a year ago and was now her entire world. "Yes," she said through tears. "Yes, I will marry you." They got married the following June in a small ceremony in Central Park, surrounded by close friends and family. Sarah was her maid of honor, crying through the entire ceremony. Vincent's parents flew in from Seattle, and his mother told Willow she had never seen her son so happy. Willow's mom was there too, and she pulled Vincent aside before the ceremony. "You break her heart, and I do not care how much money you have. I will make your life hell," she said. Vincent grinned. "I would expect nothing less. But I promise you, I am going to spend the rest of my life making her happy." Their honeymoon was 3 weeks in Italy, eating their way through Rome and Florence and the Amalfi Coast. Willow took notes on everything, inspired by the bakeries and cafes they visited. Vincent just watched her fall in love with food and life over and over again, and he thought he was the luckiest man alive. When they returned to New York, Willow found out she was pregnant. It was unplanned but not unwelcome, and both of them were thrilled. "We are going to have a baby," she kept saying, like she could not quite believe it. "Best accident ever," Vincent said, his hand on her still flat stomach. They bought a house in Park Slope, a brownstone within walking distance of the bakery. It needed renovation, but it had a backyard and enough bedrooms for the family they were building. Willow cut back her hours at the bakery as her pregnancy progressed, finally learning to delegate and trust her team. Their daughter was born in March, a tiny perfect thing with Vincent's dark hair and Willow's eyes. They named her Charlotte Rose, and she became the center of their universe. Vincent took paternity leave, something that shocked his board but that he refused to negotiate on. He spent those first months being a hands-on father, changing diapers and walking the floor at 3 in the morning while Charlotte fussed. "You are really good at this," Willow said one night, watching him rock their daughter to sleep. "I did not know I could love something this much," he admitted. "I thought I had reached maximum capacity with you, but this is different. She is part of you and part of me, and it is overwhelming." Flower and Fire continued to thrive. Willow opened a second location 2 years later in Manhattan, this one with a full cafe menu and a bar that served wine and coffee. She hired a general manager so she could focus on recipe development and spend time with Charlotte. She published a cookbook that became a bestseller, filled with stories about her journey and the recipes that had made her bakery famous. Vincent shifted his business focus as well. He started investing in small businesses like the one Willow had built, particularly those owned by women and minorities who struggled to get traditional funding. He created a foundation that provided interest-free loans and mentorship. It was not as lucrative as his other investments, but it was more fulfilling. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they sat on the back patio of their brownstone, Charlotte asleep upstairs, a bottle of wine between them. "You ever think about that first message?" Willow asked. "About how crazy it is that we found each other. All the time. I think about how close I came to not joining that site, to staying in my bubble, and then I would have missed you. I was so scared when I agreed to meet you. Scared you would be a creep or that you would be disappointed when you saw me. I never imagined this." She gestured around them at the life they had built. "I imagined it," Vincent said. "Maybe not the specifics, but the feeling. I imagined finding someone who saw me, really saw me, not the money or the status. And then you made that stupid joke about sourdough and I thought, there she is. I have been looking for you my entire life. That is ridiculously romantic. I am a ridiculously romantic guy when I am with the right person." 2 years later, they had a son, a rambunctious boy they named Owen James, who had Willow's smile and way too much energy. Charlotte was a protective older sister, teaching him everything and bossing him around in the sweetest way. Vincent and Willow's house was chaos and noise, and so much love it sometimes felt hard to breathe. Willow published a second cookbook and started teaching baking classes at the bakery on Saturday mornings. Vincent finally stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Grayson Investments, appointing a new CEO while he focused on his foundation work. They took family vacations and had Sunday dinners and built traditions that their children would remember forever. On their 10th anniversary, they went back to Oregon, to the small cafe where they had first met in person. It was still there, still serving mediocre coffee and good pastries. They sat at the same table and Vincent took her hand. 10 years ago, I walked through that door terrified you would not like the real me," he said. 10 years ago, I sat at this table convinced you would be disappointed by the real me," Willow replied. "We were both idiots. Complete idiots," they laughed, and it felt like coming full circle. From strangers on the internet to husband and wife, parents, partners in every sense of the word. They had built a life that neither of them could have imagined that first night when Willow had made a joke about sourdough and Vincent had decided to reach out. As they flew back to New York with their kids, Willow thought about how much courage it had taken to say yes to that first coffee date, to moving to New York, to marrying a man whose world was so different from hers. But every scary decision had led her here, to this beautiful messy life full of flower and love and possibility. Charlotte was coloring in the seat next to her, and Owen was asleep on Vincent's lap across the aisle. Her husband caught her eye and smiled, that same smile that had made her feel seen a decade ago. She smiled back, thinking about the message that had changed everything, about how sometimes the person you are meant to find is hiding behind a screen name and a willingness to be vulnerable. They had been online friends first, just two people looking for genuine connection in a world that often felt superficial. They had shared their dreams and fears through messages, building a foundation of trust and understanding before they ever met. And then those messages had become their reality, better and more complicated and more wonderful than either of them had dared to hope. Willow reached across the aisle and took Vincent's free hand, linking their fingers together. He squeezed back, a silent conversation that needed no words. They had found each other against all odds, two people from different worlds who had created their own world together. And every day, they chose each other again, building a love story that had started with a simple message about patience and bread, and had grown into something neither of them would ever take for granted. It was real, it was theirs, and it was everything.